Alright guys, so usually this would be another Dead by Daylight video, as of course I think I'm about halfway, maybe a little more than that, on getting through all the killers and doing their introductions, just to help people who are new to the game learn how to play killers and what to do and everything. I'm not sure how many people are going to stick with Dead by Daylight after they get tired of the whole Five Nights at Freddy's experience, but for the few that are going to stay and try out other killers, that's why I'm making the videos that I'm making. And also, I enjoy it, I enjoy going through all the killers and all that good stuff. But today, this is not about Dead by Daylight. This is about the just tragedy of what Bungie is turning Destiny into going into the new arc, new era, new saga. I believe the new saga is called I think it's called the Fate Saga or something like that. I'm not sure. Like the previous one was Light and Dark. Now, going into this, I'm not hating on the story or the voice acting or the cutscenes. Those three things were done very well, and this is not talking about those, and I will reiterate that towards the end of the video again. This is talking about the gameplay, the horrible decisions that Bungie made going into the raid, and just the decisions that they're making for the end game. Because after you finish the campaign, the story and stuff, there needs to still be things to do. Otherwise, people are going to leave the game and go play something else. This is a live service game, and the struggle, when you are creating or maintaining a live service game is, retaining players. That's the hardest thing. Versus like a single player game company like Naughty Dog, who, they just release a game, you pay $60 or $70 for it, whatever, and you play through it. Usually the viewership declines after, it declines heavily after about a week, and then, it's whatever, they made their sales, and then they start working on the next game. But with live service, it's more risky, it's more stressful. A lot of times these companies get desperate. So let's get into it. I don't want this video to be too long. It's probably going to be long, though. But before anything, check the description box. I'm going to be linking a video by Divide. He's a content creator for Destiny, very intelligent dude when it comes to everything Destiny. He made a very, very good, simplistic 2.5-minute video that explains why you should not get the Edge of Fate expansion, okay? And then he has another video that's about 18 minutes long where he goes into, just the decline of Destiny 2 and what Bungie has done to this franchise. And I believe he made that video 10 months ago. But the 2.5-minute video, it'll be in the description box. Check it out. Very well done, very well made, and he packed all that information into a single video. He didn't talk about the raid. He just basically did a short rundown of, there's just nothing really to do after you beat the story and campaign, and how they've said that they're not going to sunset stuff, but they still got rid of stuff without, actually saying it. So they're being Bungie is being a little slimy here, I'm not saying that they've never been slimy, but just in regards to sunsetting stuff, which they said they're never going to do again, they've kind of done in a way. And I'll get into that. But starting out here, I've got my notes because we got to go through a lot of stuff. Now, mind you, I have not. Let me see if I can move this camera down a little bit more here. Mind you, hold on. I have not finished the Edge of Fate campaign, but this is just talking about my experience, and I'm halfway through the campaign, I want to say, and this is just stuff that day one you can see issues with the game. So the story and the campaign in general, it's very interesting, it's very colorful. You can't really compare the last expansion to this one, because the last expansion with the final shape was an ending to a 10-year story, a 10-year plan. And I'm not sure if this is this story. They wanted to go another 10 years. I mean, the story is definitely there with the 9. The content is definitely there, and I can see how the writers can stretch it to last 10 years. But just with the decisions they're making, I don't know if this game's going to survive. I got to be honest with you. I've been here since the alpha of Destiny 1, and it's pretty rough out here right now for us no life Destiny players. For the cat. Hold on, I got a phone call for some reason. For the Destiny casual players, you guys are fine. You guys still can, buy the expansions when they come out and just play the story. But anyway, this is just going to be for the gameplay mechanics. We're going to be starting out, and I'm going to dive into the raid and everything. And first things first. For the most part, the boss designs in the expansion are pretty terrible. One in particular, there's a boss called the Reactor Saboteur. It's just a big fat shank. How many times have we fought big fat shanks as bosses in Destiny? It's basically just the fallen saber shank from, if you remember that strike in Destiny 1 where Zavala is kind of the narrator. It's in the Cosmodrome, and you go into this facility with Rasputin, and you just destroy a big fallen shank, and that's basically the same boss. The only difference is they made it immune. It's like whoop-de-doo. And then they just throw tons of shanks at you, little tiny shanks. They've created some new shanks that have kind of a AOE, effect and stuff, and they're just, here's a regular shank, here's a AOE shank, here's a shank that takes longer to kill, and they just throw them all at you. The battlefield is just really redundant because it's a mission where you circle back to where you were at the beginning, and you circle back to it twice, and it's just like there's just no ingenuity, with a lot of these mission designs. So I had an issue with that. I actually got a good amount of clips that I'll be uploading to my TikTok just to make fun of the whole entire encounter. So just to go along with the terrible boss design, we also have terrible map design. Maybe not map design, but terrible mission design is what I should say. Where you just open this door, you blow up this generator, you grab this arc ball, and you put it in the hole. Mechanics that, they do have new mechanics, but it's just stuff that we've always been doing. But before, they did it in a way that wasn't so annoying because they kind of tied in the lore and stuff to it. But in a lot of situations in this expansion, there isn't any, lore happening. There's just silence, maybe a tiny bit of, music that we've heard before, and you're just doing the same thing over and over again. It's getting really tedious and boring. That's all I'll talk about. I'm done with that. We're done with that. If you know, and a lot of people will stop playing the game because of the redundancy of this. It's just boring. We've seen it before. Come out with something new. Come on. It's bad enough that they keep recycling the same guns into the new expansions. Raise your hand if you're a player who maybe you try out, one or two new guns that are affiliated with the expansion, but you still go back to the same guns you've been using. You still go back to, your Galahorn. You still go back to your rocket sidearms that came out with the last expansion. And you still go back to the old guns. Maybe you're using a Mida. Maybe you're using Acrea shotgun still, or whatever, or whatever you use. Just the OG guns that are still just ridiculously strong, and there's just no reason to use these other guns that you're deleting, and they're the same guns that we've been using in previous expansions. All they do is change a stat here or there, maybe make the gun purple instead of blue, and they just resell it to you like it's something new, and it's not. Day one glitches are still in the game. Two in particular that I want to talk about. One, where you have a waypoint. Sometimes it's a white tick on the radar. Depending on your HUD, the top left or top right corner of your screen. And then if you're looking at your screen, it'll sometimes be, if you get close enough, a kind of white diamond. And it tells you, hey, you need to go here, you need to go there, or whatever. So that is still broken. Quite a few times I had the navigation pointing me in the wrong direction. I get there and then I find out, oh, I'm not supposed to be here yet because I don't have the ability, the new mechanic, to get through this area, and then there were other situations when the navigation would actually break off. It would point in two different directions instead of one, and they'd be flickering like the game is trying to give me epilepsy or something. The second one, and I'm gonna kind of say this, and then I'll explain what I mean. So the second one is mission pick-upable objectives not having primary focus over irrelevant non-mission items. So what I mean by that is, here, let me give you an example. Have you ever played the game Halo, the one that Bungie made before Destiny? Now, have you ever played a game mode in Halo like Assault or Capture the Flag or Oddball? You have? Okay. Now, have you ever found yourself in a situation in those game modes where, let's say, there's let's say you kill somebody and they drop a bunch of weapons on the ground, right? Now you want to pick up one or two of those weapons. So you have to drop your objective. You have to drop the bomb, the flag, or the ball in order to pick it up. So you do that, and then you pick up the ball again. Well, no, I don't want to pick up the ball. I want to pick up the sniper rifle. Okay, you drop it, and then now you picked up the rocket launcher. Just like, no, I want the sniper rifle, and that's what's happening in Destiny. But it's even worse than it was in Halo, because in Destiny the radius at which you can pick up something is just crazy when it comes to the objective. So I had to put down the objective, whether it be an arc ball or whatever, about 10 feet from where I'm standing during a boss fight, just so I could pick up the new ability and use it. I mean, it's crazy how primitive this game still is, and they're just now addressing things that have been an issue for the longest time, like PC crashes, which has happened in the raid, and we're gonna get into that a little bit later. But it's just like, what are they doing over there, And then they constantly have us using the new glitching mechanics, mainly the Matter Spark, where you turn into a ball. They've shown it in the trailers. So you turn into a ball. A lot of people are getting motion sickness with this, and that's where a lot of the bad reviews are coming from. Now Bungie said they have seen this. They have it in a patch that they're going to release in the near future to kind of alleviate the issue with the motion sickness. I personally am lucky. I don't really get motion sickness from anything. So that wasn't the issue that I had with Matter Spark. The issue that I had with Matter Spark is when I turned into my ball form, I would literally, a lot of the time, just fall through the map. I would just fall through the map, just for the hell of it. I'd die, and then I'd have to start over again. Or there'd be times where I turned into a little ball, and I just wouldn't be able to fit through the hole. I would have to go back, like you have to go in perfectly for the ball to go through the hole. I mean, with the last layoffs, I don't think they have a QA team anymore. I really don't. I don't think there's anyone playtesting the game before it releases, because we have not seen this many glitches. Even the people that no-life the raid when it comes out, they're saying the same thing. The amount of glitches in this game now, it's just insane. It really is. So the three new abilities we have. We've got Matter Spark, Matter Morph, and Relocator. I talked about Matter Spark a second ago. Matter Morph is basically you go up to this new alien plant thing, you grab the thing off of it, you smash it in your hand, and now you have the ability to shoot it at walls or pipes or whatever that are kind of glowing. And then what happens is they'll kind of form themselves in a way to where you can use them to get up into high areas. Or maybe if you turn into a ball form, you can now use your power before you turn into a ball form to put like a bridge underneath so you can get through an area, things like that. So you can use it to physically alter other objects. I forget the word for it. And the third one is not really an ability, but it's a weapon. It's called the Relocator. They kind of modified the fallen solar cannons into this new void thing that you can shoot, and you can bounce it off of these. I don't know what you want to call them, these coils or whatever, and you can hit this purple thing on the wall, and then it opens up this thing, and you go into it, and you teleport into the next room. You lose your relocator. You got to get a new one, and then rinse and repeat. It's cool. It's okay. You can use the relocator and shoot it at enemies, and it actually does a decent amount of damage. And it kind of flings them up in the air, and it's kind of helpful sometimes, if you just want to pick it up and use it as a weapon. But overall, this new system with these new mechanics, it's not really fun. You're creating a problem in your world, and you're just using an unfun system to solve it. Matter Spark, it kind of feels terrible to use. It's just kind of glitchy. It doesn't feel smooth whatsoever. It just they make it seem because you're not looking at it from the point of view you're going to be looking at it when you're actually in the game. In the trailer, they can kind of modify it, and they're just marketing it. They're selling it so you could buy the expansion or whatever. They're like, ooh, look at this shiny new thing, and it's not actually going to work the way it does in the trailer in your game. What a surprise. You use it to just... you can use it to hurt enemies. It doesn't do that much damage. But you'd rather just do, regular puzzles that they've had in the past instead of doing this. So, it's a little silly. So we don't have a new subclass, which is disappointing. In previous trailers for this expansion, they kind of made it seem like you would. But there's no new subclass, which is a bummer. By this time we would have a new one, but it is what it is. I don't know why. It wouldn't. We're just gonna give up on that, but it would have been infinitely better if they would have just had a new subclass instead of making these dumb new mechanics that just kind of felt like they spent 5 minutes on it and just left it. So we have this new thing for the UI called the portal. The design of it is not really the issue, but the way that they've structured their content is kind of boring when you're doing the same 5 missions over and over again to grind power, and then they don't rotate the weapons that are assigned with those missions, so you have to keep doing the same missions over and over again. Not saying that we haven't been doing the same missions over and over again to get certain weapons or whatever, but it'd be rotated, But when I mean the same mission, not plural, the same one mission you're doing over and over again, because the weapon won't get put on another mission. It's very boring. It's very tedious. But to explain the portal really quick, I don't know if they're going to do away with the old UI with the world. It's still there where you get to see all the planets, and you can, click on, Cosmodrome if you want to go there. You can click on the tower if you want to go there. But now the portal is a condensed version of that, where you can't go to the planets through that. You have to go to the world tab. But through that, you can go to the solo ops, which is kind of like a little Spartan ops thing if you ever play Halo 4. It's a 5 to 10 minute mission. They're basically just lost sectors. They are in a playlist now. And then you have like a 3-man ops thing of missions you've already done in the past. And then you have the exotic mission tab. And then you have the pinnacle tab where you can... I think actually the pinnacle tab is the strike one, and you can set it at different difficulties or whatever. And then they have the crucible in there, of course. They have a new seasonal tab, which is like a 20 tier free battle pass, which is cool. You get some strange coins, and you get some high tier gear and everything. But for the most part, it's lackluster, and it's like why? What are we doing? And it really just is. You're taking stuff from the world tab, you're putting it in there, and it's like why? We're pressing extra buttons than we need to. So let's talk about the power grind here. So yeah, there's a mission called the Encore Exotic Mission. You may have done it, you may have not done it, but basically, like I said, only certain high tier gear is on one mission. People have been farming the same Encore mission for like 20 or 30 hours just to get ready for the raid. And the reason they've done that is because like once you hit power 200, basically, it's the only way to get a good chunk of power per mission. And you want to get to as close to 450 as you possibly can get. And then this is just for the hardcore players. I'm not a hardcore Destiny player. I tried to be one, and it's just I'm glad I didn't, because it's just stressful. It's just not fun. I'm much happier just being a casual fan that plays the story and usually uninstalls and does something else afterwards. Playing 20 or 30 hours on the same mission over and over again, that sounds horrible to me, and I feel sorry for people that did that. But I understand that they want to try to get world first in the raid, and in order to get that extra point or two of damage, every bit of power counts, and that's how Bungie designed this expansion. So unfortunately, those are the rules that these players have to play with. It's ridiculous. It's unfun. It makes people want to stop grinding, and I understand that there has to be a grind, but at some point you go from a grind to just insanity. That makes no sense. So basically, it just feels like they design all these missions to pad the player's time and try to get them to spend as much time playing the game before they realize, hey, they're having me do the same stuff over and over again, and then people leave the game. But they kind of hide it. They're very not genuine about what the game is actually going to be after you buy it and you start playing the expansion. It's uncreative, it's unimaginative. There's just no soul really into this besides the story and the cutscenes and the voice acting. It's basically a boring side quest and puzzle simulator, which would be fine if you weren't doing the same three things over and over again just to get ready for the raid. But yeah, so now let's talk about the horrible raid experience, shall we? So we have this new raid, Desert something, and every time there's a new raid, they do the world's first event thing. You have everybody streaming. Destiny basically becomes the #1 game, viewer-wise on Twitch for a little bit during this event, this 48-hour event, and then whoever gets first place and does the raid first, they get a jacket and things like that, and they get their own emblems and what have you, and clout, and I don't know if they get money. I'm not sure about that. But before I get into the bad, and there's a lot of bad, let's talk about a couple good things that happened with the raid. So for the first time ever in the raid, people were able to choose which bosses that they did in whichever order, which is unheard of in a Destiny raid. Usually it's a linear path, just like in, I guess I should use the Taken King raid as an example. I haven't done a raid in a while, so my memory is a little joggy on them, but it's like you did that big knight dude first, and then you did Golgoroth, and then you did the sisters, and then you did Oryx, and there was no possible way to do them out of order. You had to stick to a linear path. But now in this new raid that just came out the other day, you can do whatever encounter you want in whatever order, which is awesome, So that's good. Also, a lot of people are saying that this was a very well designed raid in terms of effort and skill, and you're not just mindlessly, you know, shooting. I mean, every raid has good puzzles, good mechanics, and stuff like that. But for people who have been playing the raids and all of them for a long time and have thousands of hours in the game, saying that it feels like the mechanics are evolving within the raid and stuff, that's good. That's awesome to hear. Now, oh boy, the bad stuff. So yeah, the team that won the event, they actually technically did not win the event. And what I mean by that is there were a ton of glitches in this raid event to where the people that actually killed the boss first, there was a glitch that happened that wiped them, that killed them after they killed the boss, and it respawned them before the encounter. So it just didn't count the boss died. And Bungie just said, hey, yeah, sorry, if the game doesn't say that you won, we can't either. So unfortunately, they technically got second, even though they got first. So people were definitely butthurt, rightfully so, about that. Another big issue was there was only a few weapons being used in the entirety of this raid. One being Thunderlord. If you don't have Thunderlord, if you don't have the catalyst on the Thunderlord, you were kind of shit out of luck, because people found out that Thunderlord was like something you had to use for a lot of the encounters. So you would, and then Lord of Wolves as well, because Bungie in a playtest, they did playtest the raid. Of course, they're going to playtest the raid at least once before they release it. They were using Lord of Wolves and Grand Overture. If you don't know, Grand Overture is a light machine gun. I've used it a couple times. It's not that fun to use. It has very high recoil, but it does do a lot of DPS. So they actually banned the Grand Overture light machine gun for the raid, which kind of pissed a lot of people off because they didn't do another playtest without using the Grand Overture, so they let the players figure that out on their own. And but they left Lord of Wolves in, so people were using Lord of Wolves, high DPS gun, but they weren't using Lord of Wolves until they ran out of ammo with the Thunderlord, and that was just it. They would just go back and forth with the Thunderlord and Lord of Wolves, and there just wasn't a whole lot of variety in terms of weapons and all that. Console players were shit out of luck in this, because if you play on this is going to be kind of hard to explain for casual players, but in raids, in hardcore stuff, especially when people are trying to solo it on PC, it's really important that they can switch between things very quickly on their loadouts. So a little while ago, I think it came out in the last expansion, Bungie made it to where you had customizable loadouts. And I think there's like 10 or 20 slots or something like that. So it's kind of like Call of Duty, where you make a custom loadout and you can switch in while you're in the game. You can switch between them. But it's even faster in Destiny 2, where with a click of a mouse, you can go from one to the other very, very quickly. I mean, some people have gotten so quick with it, they can do it in like 0.5 seconds. Unfortunately, on console, because of how long it takes for the character screen to pull up and switch to the build, it just, you're just behind. When it comes to time management, you're just behind. So console players were shut out of luck. There was a couple teams on Xbox, and I think one team on PlayStation that did finish the raid within 48 hours, which is impressive. But other than that, they were shit out of luck. And then also, Bungie had previously nerfed loadout swapping. I don't know if it's entirely on all of the swapping, but I know on an exotic chest piece or two that are popular and people were using in a lot of their builds, they made it to where once you switch to it, you would have to wait 10 seconds before the ability of said exotic chest piece activated, which is pretty shitty. When a lot of the raids kind of require swapping to happen because of just how they're designed. They design it where enemies and bosses are meat sponges, and the whole point is for you to dish out as much DPS as possible in the shortest amount of time, and the way you do that is by switching weapons. Because there's a lot of abilities in the game where you get more DPS if you damage someone with like an auto rifle, and then if you switch really quickly with a shotgun, the shotgun does more damage. You switch to a grenade launcher, the grenade launcher does more damage because you use a shotgun before it. So, yeah, they kind of went against their own unwritten rule in it. So, what else? The raid was... Yeah, so I was talking about the raid was heavily restricted with only 2 or 3 viable weapon loadouts. And, the new stat system. So they got rid of the old stat system where it was like, recovery and mobility and, the 6 stats. So those are all gone. Now you've got, like, health, you've got weapon, super... ability, grenade, whatever. So a lot of people have found that none of those matter except for 2, which is weapon and super. So all the other stats, they don't matter. So people have just been farming and have been waiting to get the rolls through the Encore mission or whatever, and the rolls they want are hundreds on the weapon and super stats. So I don't know if you remember in the last expansion, you would look at a character and they would have 100 in recovery, 100 in mobility, whatever. So each stat kind of has a hidden ability, which you can look at it in your character screen if you put your cursor over it or your mouse over it, and it'll tell you what it is. But you only get that ability through the stat if it is over 100. So, yeah. And the issue with it is it devalued players before the DLC came out because people were getting ready for the new raid. And even though they don't know what the raid is going to be when the new expansion comes out, they still get ready for it by getting the right rolls and everything because they were still going off of the old stat system. And then one of the biggest issues was the tedious leveling that I already talked about with the Encore exotic missions, where people would just run the same mission over and over again until their fingers bled, because someone that is at power 250 is going to do less damage than someone that's at 251, and like I said, every point of damage matters when you're dealing with bosses that are meat sponges. And also, I talked about the raid is plagued with lots of bugs. People had to constantly relaunch the raid. They would have to quit out and get everybody in the lobby and relaunch the raid. Do the issues with weapons. A lot of people were having issues where the rate of fire on a lot of their guns wasn't they weren't firing how fast they should. People were, going up to the rally banners and they were not getting their super. A lot of people couldn't tell. So because it was a new raid, a lot of people couldn't tell if they were doing something wrong because they were learning the mechanics of the raid, or if they were soft locking the raid, which means that they couldn't continue because of the glitches that were happening, which is a big issue. And this is why you should playtest the raid more than once, as Bungie, so you can kind of look for these glitches and deal with them. Because when you're having a competition and these glitches are happening, it just kind of invalidates the whole entire thing. So I hope they weren't playing for money, because that would suck. Big issue. So yeah, people had to quit out. They had to reboot. Some people's weapons only had 1 bullet in them, and their guns wouldn't reload, and even when they reloaded, it would only reload 1 bullet at a time, which is like the weirdest thing ever. I've never seen that. And then even when they were trying to relaunch the raid, the launch button wouldn't even work. They would have to click on it a million times before it even started to put them into the raid again. So yeah, but that's not it. Now we're going to get into just how scummy some people were via streamers, just to have a small chance of winning the raid race. So this is just to get a little bit of an edge to try to win the race. But it has been a common occurrence where streamers competing in the race will black out or or blur out a portion of their screen, so scouts from other teams won't be able to come to their stream in order to gain critical information. So I'm gonna tell Todd, my buddy Todd, hey man, can you go to this person's stream and see if they're ahead of us, and get any value information that you can. So they'll block out the stream so they can't. I get it. You want to win. We all understand that. But when you're screwing over your viewers and your consumers that support you, it's not a good look. You basically become the laughingstock of the community when you do stuff like that. And it's especially scummy when we only get one raid per year. And, even though we have another expansion coming out December 2nd with the whole Star Wars, whatever, Renegades, whatever that's going to be, we don't get a new raid with that. We'll probably get a new dungeon, at least, but we won't get a new raid with that, which sucks. And the sad part about this is that a lot of people have won the world first races before without blocking a portion of their screen while they've streamed. So it's definitely possible. These people, there's a fine line, you shouldn't cross, and people are crossing it just to win a tournament that I don't think people are even playing for money, and they're forgetting that without their viewers, they wouldn't even have, a job to, help support them do this and spend, like 20 or 30 hours being a gremlin in their basement, so it's just really scummy. It's slimy, it's greasy, it's just terrible, and it's these people are absolute douchebags for doing this to their viewers. And the sad part is that these people are some of the most insanely talented Destiny players out there. And a lot of people have been saying it's just better if they would mute the stream so communications can't be heard, but their viewers would be able to still see the gameplay. So that would still be good, and a lot of people would still accept that. And, it's just like, why not do that instead? And then a lot of people watch these raids to form, lasting memories, because who knows, maybe there's some people that for whatever reason can't play the raid. Maybe they don't have money for the expansion or whatever, and this is the only way that they can kind of enjoy the content. And when you do stuff like this, it ruins the experience for them, and people are gonna ask them, hey, do you remember when that raid happened? It's like, no, I don't, because I couldn't watch half of it because the person that I was watching had half their screen blocked off or whatever. There was some good that came out of it, though. A lot of smaller streamers got more viewers because people were leaving the streams of the screen blockers and going to people that were showing everything. So it wasn't 100% negative, I'll give you that. But probably the scummiest thing, and I will not name the streamer, it was a streamer who had nothing but I'm gonna read this here, word for word, so I don't get it wrong. So there was a streamer who had nothing but a repeating cat gif on screen while they had 5,000 viewers while doing the raid, while they also were playing non-stop ads, farming money off of their non-raid watching viewers. I'll leave that there. It doesn't get worse than that. It really doesn't. And then another person was asking their chat for help during the raid, and people were responding with, "We can't see the fucking screen, you fucking idiot, because you have it fucking blocked. So we can't help you because we don't know what's going on." On a more serious note, though, the Destiny future is definitely it's uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. It definitely feels like Bungie is, they just don't care. They're running out of ideas. At this point, it would have been better if they would have released Destiny 3 on a new engine, and it would give themselves more tools to use for future content. More layoffs are probably on the way because this expansion is not even going to come close to the amount of money that the Final Shape expansion made them, even though they said that the Final Shape expansion, they didn't get as much money as they were hoping for, or they had negatives or something like that, which was hard to believe because we had record numbers in terms of population for the Final Shape. So yeah, Pete's gonna be looking for some new cars, so he's gonna have to lay some people off. But like I said, the story was interesting. The cutscenes were well done. The voice acting was fine. Even the chick, of the veteran actress who replaced Ikora, she did a good job. And also the original actress, she's re-recording the lines because the reason why Ikora has a different voice actress in this expansion is because of the writer's strike that happened, and now that that's over, they're gonna re-release, or not re-release, but re-release the same lines, but the right voice actress is gonna be saying them. What else? There isn't enough incentive to justify playing the game at this point. After wrapping up the story, there really is no end game now. We have no new strikes, no new PvP maps, no new subclasses, no new dungeons. It's the same mindless slop, but this time there is no seasoning, basically, And the seasoning, it was the strikes, it was the new PvP maps, But there's less new stuff, and that is the issue. There are less new things to do and look at when you're done with the campaign. But on the bright side, though, we got a lot of new games coming out. I'm definitely going to be getting the new Dying Light. Helldivers 2 is coming to Xbox in August. Mafia 3. I've never played a Mafia game, so I'm excited for Mafia 3. We have a new Sonic racing game I'm excited for. I'm excited for Borderlands 4. And then I'm probably going to be getting the new Demon Slayer game as well, because I've recently become a huge fan of Demon Slayer. So yeah, and then there's also some new games that I'm forgetting that are coming out in September, and so yeah, that is basically all you need to know about why not to buy the new Edge of Fate expansion for Destiny 2. Yeah, that was a lot. If I miss anything, leave it in the comment section below. Like I said, I'm going to put Divide's 2.5-minute video in the description. Click it, check it out. He goes more in depth about the end game stuff and why the portal sucks, and yeah. So the state of the game is not good right now. It's awesome to have a new raid. It's awesome to have a new story, but this is a live service game. You got to give your fans more than that. When you're getting rid of old systems and you don't replace them with new, you replace it with a new system, but not new missions, not new end game stuff. So anyway, I'm done. I'll catch you on the flip side with a new Dead by Daylight video within the coming days. But I had to get this out there. I had to vent. I had to use you guys as my shrink and get this off my chest, because as a longtime Destiny fan, I'm not happy with the state of the game. And even though I'm not a hardcore fan, I usually do invest a good amount of time in the end game stuff. And I'm just looking at the end game stuff, and it's not good. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? So yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.